Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Coffee with Ryan. It is Friday morning, Freestyle Fridays. I don't have an agenda. I just want to have fun. So here we go. What's going on, everyone? How are you doing? Oops, I got two mics on here. So thank you for being here, everyone. Chris, we already have some comments pouring in from my two buddies, Gloff and Griswold Grimm. We've got an oh boy, which is technically up for interpretation. We're not quite sure what that means. That could either mean, oh boy, those are some great moves, or oh boy, yikes. We don't know which one. There is no agenda, Grizz. I'm just having fun, okay? There's no agenda here. We're just hanging out, having fun. It's Friday morning. It's sorting myself out. Of course, we want to focus on something meaningful, but also we want to have a little fun. We're not going to take ourselves too seriously here this morning. Gloff says, what's up, Ryan, wherever you are? I'm in Colorado, and what's up to you, brother, wherever you are? James says, shit, spit those rhymes, or spin those rhymes. That's pretty good. So, what do y'all want to talk about today? Got some time here, and I'm just looking forward. I've been writing like crazy. I've got just tons. I've got like 12 books on my desk here because I'm digging for resources for my research, and it has been a arduous task, to say the least. But I'm excited because I'm almost done with one of the papers, and then the other one hopefully will be done by Monday. So anyways, so Grizz, I saw in the chat you said you were watching Jonathan Kleck. Who's Jonathan Kleck? Have I heard of this person? Jonathan Kleck. I'm going to look that up right now. What's my paper about? I'm writing two papers. One's on the psychology of vocation. What does it mean to have a calling? What does it mean to feel a sense of purpose? How does that manifest itself in certain people's lives? How do they find it? When does it come? How does it develop? And then the other one is on the nature of archetypes as a concept versus the nature of archetypes as an actual sense of embodied feeling. So an archetype, like Plato's world of images, right? An archetype as a concept versus an archetype as a lived experience, something that you have contact with. And so we're kind of blurring those lines between the meta conceptual world and the actual lived experience that we have every day. Jonathan, what's his name again? I forgot already. Jonathan Kleck. Who is Jonathan? Hey, Bruce, great to see you. Jonathan Kleck. Let's take a look here. Who is this fellow? The Kabbalist.
The Groupon app is amazing.
Oops, I've got an ad here on YouTube. It looks like is he some sort of philosopher or commentator? Is that right? Interesting. Oh, Chris says, I don't think it's appropriate for this channel. Wow, you guys are getting me into some deep, dark places in the internet, I guess. He's an end-time skydiver. I don't even know what that means. That's an interesting thought, an end-time skydiver. Gloff says he's at his dad's place in Illinois. That's awesome, man. Man, you know what? Gloff and Grizz, both of you have been wanting to talk lately. If you want, I can send you the key to this stream, and you can hop in with me if you want. I wouldn't do this for everyone, only people that we really have trusted on the channel. So let me know in the chat. If not, I'll just keep you entertained. But we might have some spontaneous guests popping in and out here in the next few minutes. Maybe if Mercury wakes up, he'll join us. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, so these papers they've been pretty fun. And very difficult, but I'm having fun engaging the content. I learn a lot more when I write. When I'm typing something out, for some reason my thoughts start coming together, and I feel like a person who actually has coherent ideas. When I don't write, my ideas are just kind of floating abstractly all over the place, and they're loosely tied together. But it's really nice to write because I feel like it helps me as a podcaster, it helps me as a presenter, and it helps me in general just continue to. Oh, I just got a notification that I'm streaming. That's awesome. Congratulations, Ryan. You're streaming. It's a way of knowing that I'm continuing to develop myself and continuing to learn and grow. And I watched this clip on the Joe Rogan Experience, and there was this one intellectual / tech guy on there, and he was talking about the way that he reads. He doesn't pick up a book and read it to completion. He picks up a book, he reads it while he's interested, then he picks up another book, and he goes in these circles. And that's what I do when I'm researching. When I'm just reading in my own private level, I'll read books to completion. But when I'm researching, I'll pick up a lot of different things and go through them and find the little nuggets and details that I need in order to fully support the writing that I'm trying to do, and even finding things that go against it. So I'm not just building myself up, but I'm also trying to strengthen the sense of resilience that I get from testing myself against other people's ideas. So let's see here. Gloff says, I don't have a computer handy, but I have a cell phone and you've got my number. Do you want to call in? You can call in if you want, Gloff, and give me some information. Grizz says, I'm grabbing coffee and seeing if I can talk myself into it. It's okay. I get it. Live streaming, sometimes it can be a little, there's a hesitation because are you going to be prepared? Are you going to be entertaining? Are you going to be articulate? That's another thing I was thinking about, because I've been listening a little bit to the NBA finals and watching that. And then I've listened a little bit on Sirius XM, sometimes the talk shows that are talking about the different players and over and over again. It's casting for a while, is that they're so smooth. There's just so little bullshit in between words, so little uhs and likes and stutters, and I still have a long way to go in that regard to become a very clear and articulate and smooth speaker. I still feel like especially on live streams, I lose track of things a little bit, and when I'm reading comments, the stuttering comes up more. I want to get to the point where I can do this whole thing so fluidly, like a dance, and it's just smooth, like ocean waves coming in on the beach. And if I can get to that point, I'll be very satisfied with myself. I've only been podcasting for a little over a year, so I'll be patient with myself. I think I've come a long way since my first episodes, and I'll continue to try to improve. So maybe one day, 5 years from now, you all will be able to see my progress and how I've sorted myself out as far as being a podcaster. Grizz says, what happened? Nothing, man. If you want to come on with me, same with you, James, because I know all of you personally, because we have indeed had in-depth conversations and are friends. Just let me know and I will send you a link. I'm not going to offer that every time I do a live stream, but I'll do it every once in a while when I'm feeling frisky. So just let me know. James is here. He says, do you have any ideas about how someone reading Jung on their own can make a structured list of topics to write essays about so that they learn the stuff better? I'd like to do this with Ion. Yeah, so I don't know why the stream cut, Grizz. That's weird. If you are reading Jung, I would suggest, well, first of all, ask yourself, why are you interested in Jung? What makes you compelled by his ideas? What is it that you're trying to figure out? Because just reading someone for the sake of reading them is great, and there's a reason you've taken an interest to Jung in your personal life, especially because you're pursuing a PhD in mathematics, and it is a very interesting thing that you've compensated also by pulling yourself into this Jungian side of things. So if you are interested in Jung, there's a reason why. And you might have your own specific topics that pull you into his ideas. So what are those topics? Write about things you're interested in. Never try to force yourself to write about things that you're not interested in unless it's assigned for some sort of paper for a class that you're taking. But when you're pursuing writing, take as much freedom as you can with what you're writing about, because the more you want to write it, the better it is to the questions that you have. And then write out of curiosity rather than out of obligation. That would be my suggestion. So you're asking about making a structured list of topics. I would then suggest make a structured list of things that you're interested in. So, okay, it looks like the stream is cutting in and out. Is that the case, ladies and gentlemen? Bruce says, great advice. Thank you, Bruce. I have no idea. If the stream keeps cutting, I have no idea why. And this has never happened to me before. So unless my internet is taking a dive into the shit, if anybody has not experienced the stream cutting, please write so in the comments whenever you have a chance. If everybody's been experiencing that, you can write that as well. So let's see here on my phone. Let's see what's going on with this stream. Whenever you have a chance. Good morning, Taryn. Okay, I'm just going to keep talking. If you're not experiencing stream cuts, please let me know. I'd like to know what the hell's going on here. Taryn Marine says, good morning. Beautiful weather this morning. Where are you? Where is the weather beautiful? Give me your general location. Don't be too specific because it's the internet, but James says, thanks for the response. Still figuring out the real reasons why I'm interested in Jung. Grizz says, it's solid at the moment. Let's power through it. Let's do it. James says, I saw it cut out a couple times, but the advice was great. Okay, good. Now, Gloff is here, and Gloff says, Ryan, a suggestion for your personal intellectual journey. Wander away from the neo-Gnosticism. I have never heard that term. I know what Gnosticism is. I do not know what neo-Gnosticism is. So let me look that up and see if I agree with your advice. Definition of neo-Gnostic by Free Dictionary. So we're in the Free Dictionary right now. I don't know what the hell that is. The doctrines of various religious sects flourishing, especially in the 2nd and 3rd century, in the Near East, teaching that the material world is the imperfect creation of a subordinate power or powers rather than of the perfect, unknowable divine being, and that the soul can transcend material existence by means of esoteric knowledge. The Mandean religion preserves one system of Gnostic belief. Can you give me an example of somebody who is a neo-Gnostic, Gloff, that I would, maybe a current philosopher or a public figure that I would be able to refer to as an example? That would be helpful. But that's an interesting definition because it's saying, basically that the idea that there isn't this divine creator that's neo-Gnostic, but that you can still phenomenologically rise above the confines of existence and reach your own enlightenment, I guess. Griswold Grimm said, Turan's in Michigan, southeastern. That's fantastic. Michigan sounds amazing. I've never... beautiful because I know a couple people who have been there several times. So nothing against Gnosis, says Gloff. I have a gripe against Gnosticism because it states knowledge as the highest spiritual state as opposed to being. I would call Jung a neo-Gnostic, says Gloff. Well, I mean, it's too late if you're trying to steer me away from Jung. I hate to break it to you, brother, but that ship has sailed. Yeah. So, but Gloff, we've done a podcast about this before, and we've kind of talked about the difference between phenomenology and Gnosticism. I don't state knowledge as the highest spiritual state whatsoever. I don't take that, and I don't think that Jung particularly believed that knowledge was the highest state. I haven't seen that reference anywhere. I'm not sure if we have the same understanding of some of the fundamental tenets of Gnosticism because to me, the idea of gnosis is all about experience of being. To know is to be is to know you're having an experience. So that's my understanding of the experience of gnosis. Now, Gnosticism, as a kind of an esoteric, mystical grouping of people who are attempting to deny physical reality and overcome it through the means of esoteric practices because they view the body as a sack of pussy flesh. I don't agree with that level of Gnosticism insofar as it existed. But I do very much like the idea of gnosis. I like the idea of a lived experience. I like the idea of bringing knowledge into embodied wisdom. So, I have a gripe against ism, says Grim. Gloff says, I'm not trying to steer you away from him, just trying to broaden your horizons, dude. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing but love here, you say. Absolutely, yeah. I didn't feel anything but love from you at any point in that. I think that it's a great discussion that we can continue to have. And if you have other authors or philosophies that you feel would be helpful to me in order to broaden those horizons, yeah, please let me know, because I would be happy to continue to stretch myself and see where I need to grow philosophically. So thanks, Gloff. And yeah, absolutely, anytime. Gloff says, gnosis is an experiential knowledge often understood as hidden knowledge. Yeah, it seems like a lot of religious factions, specifically the mystical threads, have that throughout history, that hidden esoteric knowledge. Like the Chinese patriarchs, they had that. The Buddhists had these like secret knowledge traditions. A lot of tantric Hindu traditions would have these cult groups of secret practitioners that would pass down the hidden meanings and practices of enlightenment. So this is a very common theme throughout history, although it seems like it's getting less and less relevant, these secret practices, because of the internet. So it's really a lot harder to keep something a secret. In New Age spirituality is clearly taking as much information as they can from any mystical tradition they can find. And as a culture, we're just synthesizing that and hybridizing it and creating what's now known as woo. Woo. So that's an interesting phenomena, I would say. Gloff says, Jonathan Pageau's video on Gnosticism is a good one. Maybe I should check that out. When did he do that, by the way? Do you know when? Let's see here. I'm going to look it up. Bear with me for a second. Jonathan Pageau. What is wrong with Gnosticism? Is this it? Let's see here.
Before, I think one of the problems with people who look at Gnosticism is that, okay, if you read the book by Saint Irenaeus on Gnosticism, it is actually called, I think it's called something like for the overthrow, for the identification and overthrow of the so-called Gnostics, right? And the reason why they're called so-called Gnostics is because the notion of gnosis in Christianity is actually very important. It's a very important aspect of Christianity. The difference between the Gnostics and the tradition.
And that comment he just made, it seems like traditional fundamentalists, Christians, totally forgot about that. Because when I went to church as a kid and when I experienced religious people, I didn't experience anyone who had any direct experience with what they called God. I experienced people who were thinking about that often and who followed the tradition blindly without any felt sense of what it actually was. So I think that's an important thing.
Gnosis in Christianity, that Gnosis in Christianity is really, in a manner, what I talk about when I talk about symbolism. That is, Gnosis is viewed as a sexual union in the Bible, right? Knowledge, like he knew his wife. It's seen as this coming together of true realities, right? And if those who are reading Matthew's book will see it in that manner too. It's the joint.
And that's where alchemy comes in, and Jung talks about that pretty often. That's an interesting point. I like this guy. I haven't listened to him nearly enough.
Joining of heaven and earth. That's what gnosis is. Knowledge is the two coming together, right? In the traditional sense. And so in Christianity, that's why we have this whole incarnational vision of the world, right? Christ is incarnate. He is the total joining of divinity and humanity, the total joining of meaning and in a person. Everything is joined together, right?
That's beautiful. I'm going to watch the rest of that later. I don't want to take too much of his content. Let me read some of your comments here. Gloff says that's the video. So that was the one that you were talking about. Fantastic. I'm very glad that I found it. Griswold Grimm says, I learned most of what I know about Gnosticism from Terence McKenna lectures. Interesting. Yeah, Terence McKenna always gives an interesting lecture. I've listened to a few of those. And he has also a conversation with Ram Dass that is recorded on YouTube. And I was just checking that out. That was an interesting encounter. Gloff says, I'm sorry to hijack the chat. Please never apologize, Gloff, for writing in the chat unless you're being a complete dick. Because right now, all you're doing is being a nice guy who's sharing some ideas. So everybody can write as much as they want. I don't want any apologies for that. Grizz says, I'll jump on if you're going to keep going for a while. I'll probably go for another 20, 30 minutes. Is that long enough for you, Grizz? Let me know. If that's long enough for you, then I'll send you the link. If not, then we can do it another time. Yeah. So let's see. James says, I think Paul Vanderklay talked a little bit about Gnosticism as well. Not sure what video, though. I would be very interested to get Paul's thoughts on Gnosticism. For those of you who don't know, we had an amazing conversation with Vanderklay on this channel, and I really like him. Gloff says, fundamentalism is a kind of anti-gnosis in that it says don't pursue knowledge or else. Exactly. Yeah, it's the opposite of Christ, fundamentalism. It's the opposite of the exploratory hero who goes into unknown territory and finds some sort of meaningful truth and integrates it back into society, which Peterson lays out very well in Maps of Meaning. Gloff says, but we shouldn't worship just knowledge either. The proper balance encompasses gnosis, but not just gnosis. Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we need to define knowledge a little more here, because knowledge as knowing something is knowing a fact, right? Like, I know that your username is Gloff. Okay, that's knowledge. So, but I wouldn't call that gnosis. To me, like, that wouldn't be considered and maybe I got it all wrong, but to me, a gnosis is a deep experience of lived knowledge. So it's not just an arbitrary fact or something that I can regurgitate, because I've rehearsed it so many times in my mind. But it's something that I know through a lived encounter. And to me, that's more close to wisdom. So I think that gnosis errs more on the side of wisdom, to actually know through an encounter, to feel it. I could have that all wrong, but that's my impression. Chris says, too constraining of time. No problem, dude. We'll do it another time. Gnosis feels more like when your intuition gives you something and you know it, but not necessarily prove it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's interesting. Gnosis is experiential knowledge. That's a really good way of explaining it, Gloff. I like that. Yeah, experiential knowledge, which I would argue that after you get enough experience with any given piece of knowledge, it begins to turn into wisdom. Tom Brown has this great quote. Knowledge is just something like, I'm butchering it. It's something like wisdom is knowledge and action. Something like that. Wisdom is knowledge and action. Maybe that's it. But it's a good quote. And because when you, like, for example, you could teach me how to fix a car, right? As a mechanic. And I could write all the steps down and I could remember it in my head and then never touch the car. I have the knowledge of how to fix the car, but I have no wisdom. I have no experience. I don't really know what it's like to fix a car. And in fact, like, even though I know the instructions, I would encounter so much unknown territory while I was performing that exercise that I would realize, like, oh shit, it's not enough just to know something. You have to experience it. And I think that that's true with a lot of things. For another example, when I was getting trained in how to work with clients with Dr. Strachan and other people, there was a sense of, oh, I know how to work with clients. But it wasn't until I actually had a client in front of me that I really understood, like, oh shit, this is a totally different experience than what we got in the lecture, where we started seeing the pathways through. But to actually be in it, it's like, oh my goodness, it's totally different than you'd imagine. And then you learn from that, and then you combine, you alchemize, like Pageau was talking about. You take the knowledge of conceptualization with the knowledge of lived experience, and that becomes something like wisdom, I would say, like the union of the mother and father. I don't fucking know. How do you distinguish from just memory, says McFace. How do you distinguish it from just memory? Distinguish what? Knowledge from memory? Is that what you mean? And yeah. Oh, I see. You have another comment. I skipped a few comments. How would you differentiate between wisdom and knowledge? Gloff says. Yeah, wisdom is more. I just told you. So you said nice. McFace says, if gnosis is experiential knowledge, is being able to flush your toilet correctly from experience gnosis? Yeah, it seems so mundane, doesn't it? I wouldn't know if I would call that gnosis. Griswold Grimm says, dictionary says gnosis, knowledge of spiritual mysteries. Sounds like he says, so I'm going to say not so much on the toilet flush. And then how do you distinguish gnosis from knowledge? It seems like gnosis, and also Gloff saying gnosis pertains more to eternal and spiritual things. Yeah, maybe it's the ability to abstract based on knowledge and encounter meta truths. And that's why it would be more esoteric or metaphysical. So if you to know something and then abstract on that knowing to a bigger level of conceptualization and spiritual connection makes it perhaps more Gnostic. I don't fucking know, guys. I'm not a Gnostic. I don't even, like, I've only read so much about Gnosticism. So it's like you're picking my brain on limited information. I mean, Jung does talk about it. Other authors I've read talk about it. Not very much of the current day neuroscientists or psychologists that I've read talk about it. So Tim Freke talks about it. Tim Freke, if Tim Freke was here right now, I would consider him an expert on gnosis. Speaking of Tim Freke, he just posted a video. Just as I said that, I got a notification. New video from Tim Freke. That was weird. It's like my computer heard me. That was bizarre. Gloff says, what if the structure of the toilet changes? Well, that's an interesting question. Griswold says, ooh, meta truth. I'm so meta, even this acronym. Gloff says, the thing with Gnosticism and the Gnostics is that there probably wasn't really a group in history that referred to themselves as the Gnostics, quote unquote. That's a good point. McFace says, I like that explanation of gnosis. Well, I'm glad you like it. James says, synchronicity, exclamation mark. Yeah, synchronicity, that's an interesting idea too. And that is what occurred in what Jung called the psychoid level of experience, where we have our own private psyches, but there are seemingly permeable boundaries between the inside world and the external world that allows meaningful coincidences to happen at times in your life where you just can't explain it any other way other than, oh my God, like that was like what just happened on my computer is what James is saying, I believe. When I say Tim Freke's name and then Tim Freke's icon pops up on my computer, that's weird. You know, that could be considered a meaningful coincidence or a synchronicity where the inside world and the outside world isn't so differentiated anymore. The lines are way more blurred than usual. Okay, so Gloff says, however, it doesn't mean a group that doesn't call itself Gnostic didn't have Gnostic principles and belief systems. Yes, that makes sense to me, and I agree with that. McFace says we would have to intuit the interaction of the toilet on an abstract level. Yeah, I guess that's a really good answer, McFace. That's actually a really good answer. I think that's right. Gloff says knowledge of form of the toilet would be a type of gnosis. Griswold Grimm says Terence left me with the impression that the Gnostics believed this reality was Sophia's abortion and that making babies was trapping the light in, so they died out. Huh. Yeah, well that I think that is yeah, James, I'm responding to you first here. James, yes, I realized you're referring to Tim's video after I started ranting for a minute. So thanks for bearing with me there. Yeah, well, I have heard the Gnostics kind of denied this physical reality as if it was something not worth being in. And to me, I don't believe that at all. And Jung doesn't believe that. I'm more, and this is kind of my own independent belief, I'm more of the belief that if you can't act it out in your body, and this is where Gloff would call me a pragmatist, because Gloff is very good with the different categories of philosophy. So he's constantly tracking what I'm saying and giving it some context, which I really appreciate, Gloff, because you give a structure to what I'm saying. But if you can't live it out, it's somewhat arbitrary insofar as we do have bodies for a reason. We are meant to live out action, to breathe, to think, to procreate, to work, to play. And these are, if we can't at least have a relationship between our body and our beliefs, even if it's a loose relationship, then I feel like we're denying something so fundamentally important about existence that it would be a huge mistake. And a lot of spiritual traditions did that, where they would deny the body completely for the sake of salvation. And it just seems like such a suicidal urge, like a spiritual suicide or something, to deny your own creation, to deny your own ability to interact with the world. Now, it's debatable. I mean, there's a lot of spiritual practitioners, the Buddhists and Hindus and people like that, who would just sit in the same place and meditate all the time and seem to have a great understanding of life and experience. So I'm not speaking in absolutes. I'm just telling you the direction that I tend to lean in. So speaking of Tim's video, let's look it up real quick. See what he posted this morning. All right. Thank you, Jonathan Pageau. Actually, I should leave this open so I have the link later when I need it to put it in the description. Oh, look, you saw Ryan's live. Okay, so he posted a video with Sheldrake, but that's not the notification I got. The power of now. Let's see what he said.
So, Tim, there's you just have to open up any self-help book or spiritual book these days, and you see this this encouragement or this command to be present, to live in the now, the power of now. Forget the past, it's gone. Don't worry about the future. It's all about now, this moment. This is all there is. Be present. So what's your kind of view on this whole presence thing? What is presence, and is it all that it's cracked up to be?
The whole be here now thing, like most things in spirituality to me, has got a deep truth in it. And yet it's been misunderstood because it's seen in an either or way. So be here now, when it's put across in an either or way, like don't think about the future, don't think about the past. And it doesn't take a moment to realize how crazy that is. My sentence only makes sense because you're remembering where it started. Everything is predicated on the past. I think it's much more interesting than that. I think that the past and the future are present in the moment. Everything that's ever happened is present now. It's the ground on which this is arising.
Yeah, well, I'm very familiar with that idea from Tim. We've talked about that several times. Let's skip ahead and see what he says later. 251.
Much more about what is thinking. Thinking is just talking to yourself in your imagination. That's what it is. You learn like when you're young and you learn to read, and you read out loud, and then you learn.
Whoever's interviewing him needs to up their microphone game.
To yourself in your imagination. We do that with talking. We learn to talk to each other, and then we can talk to ourselves. It's a great blessing. But of course, you can talk rubbish, and you can talk rubbish to yourself. So if you're constantly worrying about the future, that's not a very useful thing to do. It's good to worry about the future, but not all the time.
I'm picking up what he's saying now. So basically, the idea is, the whole idea of be here now is only a useful idea insofar as we still have to think about the past and the future. We still have to interact with the timeline of life. We cannot just simply, and that's actually a very synchronistic bridge into what I was just talking about. We do have bodies. We do flourish and degenerate. There's very much a microscopic, microorganismic aspect to our reality that is just part of biology. So certain things come and go, and we do have to negotiate our lives with the fact that that's true. Although Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which is the title of that video, is very good. And if you haven't read The Power of Now, I would recommend it. It's a very easy read, and it's just basically saying how to be in the present moment, how to encounter each moment on its own, and to just fully experience it. You can plan the future in the present moment. You don't have to be not here to be there at the same time. You can actually hold those two things at once, and that's what Tim calls paralogical, both and. So I think that being in the present moment doesn't mean that you're avoiding your responsibilities. And I think that we talked about Peterson's criticism on Campbell, Follow Your Bliss. Part of that is that criticism is the idea that just following your bliss and being in the present moment, like you're avoiding somehow this overall global responsibility that you have to take on. But in my opinion, there is no reason that those two things have to negate each other. I'm talking right now, and I can also utilize my awareness to be very conscious of the way that sounds are coming out of my mouth, the way that sounds are coming into my ears. I can just add a little bit of extra sensitivity to those levels of my experience, and that's going to make me more alive here in the present moment. Being in the present moment it's just attention, just paying attention. Now, how big are our attention spans? Do we have the ability to pay attention to writing a paper or planning a future trip while also really being immersed in the now? I think that is a practice. That's a difficult thing. That is why so many yogis and spiritualists go off into the caves and go into solitude and really close themselves off from the world, because it gives you that insulation so that you can fully just experience what it's like to be, what it's like to have a body, what it's like to have a mind, how you can optimize that experience without any outside stresses or distractions. But then when you come into the real world, well, I mean, it's negotiable and debatable what's real. When you come into the busy world, then you are all of a sudden met with so many different distractions and people and agendas and projections and emotions and also relationships. And all of a sudden it just becomes harder and harder to live your life the way that you had dreamed you would when you were out in that cave meditating. And so that's a problem that we have to wrestle with as people who are trying to live in the present moment, to live a spiritual and meaningful lifestyle, and at the same time be productive. And that's me. That's what I want to do in my life. I might go sit in a cave for a couple of days, like I've done wilderness excursions and quests and meditation retreats, but I'm not going to go stay out there like some people do, like a monk. That's not for me. What I want to do is figure out how can I bring that wisdom into doing my taxes, into taking care of my household and showing up for my relationships and hopefully having kids one day. So I want to live in this world. I do not want to escape from it. I want to see how well adjusted I can become within the world that we are in and see what happens. That's my goal. Let's see here. Pageau is here with my number one troll. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in the comments. I am honored to see you here, and I will now read your comments after my rant, which I have no idea how long it went. Okay. Let's see here. Gloff says, I'm a fan of Plato, if you couldn't tell. Yes, Plato is awesome, and I love your experience with Plato. And you say, thanks, dude. I'm assuming for saying that you've got a good hold on philosophy. McFace says, I've experienced a lot of undeniable synchronicity, but I've also seen people look for so much that they drove themselves into psychosis. What's your attitude towards coincidence in life? Yeah, okay, so Sigmund Freud had this great quote, and it applies to many things, including synchronicity. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. It's not a phallic fantasy. It's not some other meaningful thing. It's just, you're just smoking a cigar. And so basically the reason I'm saying it is because it's analogous to what you're saying, in that sometimes life is just life. Not everything's an omen. Not everything's a miracle. Not everything is God talking to us. Not everything is always magical. Like, there is mundane to life. It exists. Sometimes you just got to pay the bills and God's not whispering in your ear or whatever. So I think that that's a really good point, because the problem with being too, well, people call it airy-fairy, woo-woo, overly optimistic, new age, yada, 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 all those things. The problem with that aspect to life is that you can start to look for meaning where there is none, And so I take a middle ground approach. Like, if I see something meaningful, then I say, oh, interesting. But I don't make that drive me into, oh, that must mean that I have to, go to the church and give them a $7,000 donation, or that must mean that God chose me to be the one. All those thoughts are dangerous, because you start getting grandiose and start forgetting, hey, you're a human being. You just took a shit 5 minutes ago. Cool it, man. Just be here now. Relax. So I take it in stride, and I do my best not to allow synchronicities to become expectations or to overanalyze them. I'm grateful for them when they come. I experience them. I enjoy them. I say, wow, that's amazing. And then I get back to chop wood, carry water. What do I need to do next? I don't try to, unless I feel some strong reason that needs to change the entire course of my day, I don't overanalyze it. A lot of times, one way to interpret synchronicities is you're on the right path. I like that. You're heading in the right direction. Something meaningful happened. You're at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. You're in a flow state. So meaningful occurrences are happening in your brain and in your environment. You're in flow with your environment. Our brains process 2 billion bits of information. We're only consciously aware of 2 to 4,000 of that a second, okay? It might even be 10 billion. But the point is that we're constantly interacting and accommodating with our environment in ways we don't understand. So if we're experiencing synchronicity, it's very well possible that we're somehow picking up on information and communicating with our environment in a way that we haven't yet scientifically explored. So you might just view it as, hey, I'm doing something right. That's what I like. It's an affirmation. It's like, keep going, buddy. So that's how I tackle that question. Why pay attention to Freud? Potato said he wanted to bang his mother. Well, Freud was an excellent psychologist, Potato, and he gets a bad rep, but we largely take him for granted in our modern day views of psychology and philosophy. But the reality is that we're standing on the shoulders of Freud in a lot of ways. So I don't underestimate him. I do think that I part ways with him, and I think he over-sexualized psychology, but I think that that was a mechanism of his own life. And he thought, if I'm this way, then everybody must be this way. If I want to bang my mother, as you so subtly put in the chat, then maybe everybody has to be that way. And if everybody's not that way, then there must be something really wrong with me. But the truth is that for the people that are that way, that do struggle from having the Oedipal complex and so forth, he was a very helpful psychologist in that regard. And he also came up with a lot of theories and philosophies that we still use in psychology today that don't have to do as much with those aspects of what he had to say. So Freud got a lot of stuff right, and any psychologist who's really studied psychology, I've heard admit that. He gets somewhat of a bad rep in the public, but so does Jung. Jung is treated as if he's a New Age mystic, and he didn't want to be seen that way. He wanted to be seen as a scientist. So everybody's work gets misinterpreted sometimes. James says, great stream so far, but I got to go. Thanks, James. It's so great to have you here as usual. Juxtapose embracing your creation and hedonism. I don't know what you mean by that. Juxtapose it with what? That's an interesting idea, though. I'm interested. Sally's here. Hey, Sally, great to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for the email yesterday. It was a great email. I enjoyed reading it, and I will respond as soon as possible. Gloff says, Tim Freke is a freak. Yes, and he now has a new podcast on iTunes called The Freak Show. So he's embracing his freakness in its full totality. He knows he's a freak, and he wants the whole world to know it. But yes, Tim is a wonderful guy, and I enjoy interacting with him, and I think he's a great philosopher, and I love how he's embracing the last name Freak. Eckhart Tolle, Gloff says, this is a quote from Eckhart. The current power of being of now exists in unity as the one. We are one as we know, and in turn we are as now and always. What the fuck? That was not a quote that I understood. Sounds like a bunch of psychobabble, Eckhart. But there are much better quotes than that from Eckhart Tolle. So I encourage you to look for a better one. But yes, but if you do read The Power of Now and you want to learn how to meditate, I recommend it. It's a good beginner's guide to meditation. There's nothing wrong with reading a New Age book, especially if it's just talking about being in the present moment. So, while there might be some problems and Eckhart might get kind of strange sometimes, as Gloff put out there, I also think he has a good way of teaching how to be here now. Potato says, I wonder if Ryan, okay, I have to read his comments in my head before I read them out loud. I'm learning this. You'd think I would have learned it by now, but it's taking some time. Yeah, okay, I'll read it. It's somewhat harmless, but a little on the edge. I wonder if Ryan sometimes puts on that Foss mask behind him and gets freaky while listening to Jordan Peterson lectures. Yeah. Oh, you know it, Fox. You know it, Potato. I'm putting on the Fox mask, and I'm just going full weirdo over here when you're not looking. So, thanks for pointing that out. That's pretty funny. Okay. Sally says, Grizz says it's interesting what you like to imagine. Sally says rants with Ryan. Sally is trying to convince me to change the name from Coffee with Ryan. She's throwing everything she can at me because I guess another guy is using Coffee with someone. And thank you, Sally. Thank you for thinking of me. And I do like rants with Ryan. I think that's great too. We could potentially do that. But for now, it's Coffee until I come up with something better. The shuffle was interesting, but I didn't like it quite as much as Coffee. Sally says, not everything is the patriarchy. Well, that goes without saying. So, Andrew Jokum is here. Welcome, Andrew Jokum. You are my friend, and I am glad you're here. Uh-oh, I hope someone doesn't clip you saying you want to bang your mother, LOL. Luckily, I don't think I'm a big enough star or a star at all at this point to be risking that sort of clipping. Although someone might now do it just in spite of me. Whatever, you know. I can't do anything about it, Andrew. If somebody wants to clip me saying that, oh, by the way, for those of you just joining, it was in context of talking about Sigmund Freud. I don't actually feel that way on my insides. Big Andy in the house, says Gloff. McFace says, Freud, William James were the precursors to modern psychology. Exactly. Thank you, McFace. Very good observation. And yes, that's true. Griswold says, you can stand on the shoulders of degenerates. Some of them like it. I don't know. Oh, I was saying standing on the shoulders of giants. Andrew Jokum says, I'm medium Andy now. Finally got under 100 kilograms. Congratulations. I'm very glad to hear that. Send us a video, a vlog or something. I'd love to see how you're doing. And congratulations. Modern psychology has taken several wrong turns during the last century. Yeah, well, that's for sure. That's for sure. Potato says, you can read my comments straight up. I only post wholesome stuff. Yes, that's up for debate. You've never crossed the line. I'll give you credit for that. And if you did cross the line, as soon as I said, Potato, you're crossing the line, you were like, oh, okay, I'll stop. So you're the most reasonable troll I've ever met in my life. There's a horrible truthier with random rants of Ryan. That would be funny. Potato, I think the Mohawk guy would be down too for crack cocaine with Ryan. We should call it crack cocaine with Ryan. Gloff says, rants with Ryan has an angry connotation to it. Coffee with Ryan is better. Okay, so Sally says there's another one called Coffee with Scott Adams. McFace says, do you ever do book discussions? I'd love to do book discussions and book reviews on this channel. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about books, but I've never devoted a whole stream or podcast just to one book. Maybe I should do that. By the way, this book right here, Creative Process and Gestalt Therapy, is really cool. And I was just using it for my paper. And one of the things in there is looking at yourself as an art piece rather than just as art, like becoming art, becoming the creative process. And in a Gestalt therapy session, that can be really powerful because you're no longer beholden to one form or the other. You can really allow yourself to experiment with what the different expressions of your psyche would like to take. And if you follow that with your therapist, it leads to good places. I can say that for sure. Coffee with Scott Adams. Yeah, I don't really know who Scott Adams is. I guess we're going to be doing another YouTube search here. And then I'm going to have to get the hell out of here, everyone. Unfortunately. Oh, and I have an exciting thing to tell you in a minute. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Scott? Oh, I don't want to leave the chat. That would be stupid. Oh, I don't want to leave this video because I'm going to have to post the link in the description. Scott Adams. Okay, how is he political? Scott Adams looks like he's a trained hypnotist, it said. and is widely recognized as an expert in persuasion. Adams has emerged as one of the most influential observers in politics. So he's okay. And he has about the same amount of subscribers as us, a couple thou less, but views is what matters really these days. And oh, he's been on the Joe Rogan channel. Wow. But Sally, the thing is, I don't think merely having coffee with Ryan is do you see that as a legal issue? Because nobody owns the word coffee. Or are you more just wanting me to differentiate myself from the other people because you want to make sure that we're creating something good? I don't know. I'm just curious what you're thinking. But thank you for that. And let's go back to the chat. Okay. I'm going to skip a few here. They're getting silly. He has real coffee, so it's different. Yes, I do have real coffee. That's for sure. Programs 10. Thank you, Programs 10, for joining. I have never seen your username on here that I can remember, so welcome to Sorting Myself Out with Ryan Holzapfel and Mercury Black. This is Coffee with Ryan, where Ryan just has coffee and says things, and it's fun. Sally says, no, just when you get big, you will look like you were doing it because of him. Good point, Sally. Good point. Bruce says, Java with Ryan. Potato is apparently now a doctor. He's stopped drinking coffee because it's bad for blood pressure. I'm just kidding, Potato. I'm not. I just have to poke a little fun back at you every once in a while because you give me your fair share. Java with Ryan. We could do Java with Ryan. Now, if I did get big, Sally, Mercury, and I sorting myself out. If we got big, do you actually think? And I'm not saying this rhetorically. See ya, Gloff. All right, brother. Thanks for joining us, and it's great to talk to you. If I actually did, let's say we got 100,000 subscribers, just hypothetically, and we did the Coffee with Ryan streams, because Scott Adams' actual channel is Coffee with Ryan. I'm just doing one subset of Productions Coffee with Ryan. Do you think people would start saying, oh, Coffee with Ryan, that's too similar with Coffee with Scott Adams, Ryan's a charlatan, blah, blah, blah. Do you think, is that like something people might say? Should I change the name Coffee with Ryan now so that later, if this goes well, that we don't have any problems? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but thank you, Sally. And if you have any other thoughts. Griswold Grimm says, it just gives people a choice who to have coffee with. See, I'm in competition with Mr. Adams. They can have coffee with Scott, or they can have coffee with me. Take your pick. I personally like myself better. I'm just kidding. I don't even know Scott Adams. That was just me being an arrogant, funny guy. I'm just being sarcastic. If you change now, you'll be unsortedly inconsistent. Yes, I could see that. I also just really appreciate Sally's thought. She sent us a lot of emails and given us a lot of thoughts on how she can help us, and she's sending in her art. Actually, can I share one of your art pieces on the screen, Sally, right now before I tune out? And obviously you can post your website in the comments if you want, because McFace says, no, that wouldn't be an issue. Okay, good. Glad to hear it. But Sally, I would like legally. Okay, I'm going to show one of Sally's art pieces. So give me a second to dig into my email here. And you can see the great art of Sally Joe M. Cooper, who is in the chat right now. And it's fantastic. So I want to pull one of them up. And then I'm going to leave you all. But I have something excited to tell you that I haven't told you yet. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be cool. Come on. Hold on. Chamon. Does that come from South Park? Chamon. I swear it does. South Park is hilarious. All right, let's see. Middle. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, I'll find one that I like. I mean, I like all of them, but one that I like particularly. Ooh, okay, here we go. This one's gonna blow your mind, folks. I'm not kidding. I love this shit. Look at that. That's absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. I mean, not only just, I mean, conceptually even. I mean, the way that it lays onto my mind, the landscape it creates within my mind, the feeling it gives me. I love that feeling. This is kind of my kind of art right here. I think there was a word for it that Sally came up with, and I honestly forget what it is. But I'll actually probably put, look at these. Oh my God. Wow. I love this stuff. It's really, really amazing. Thank you for sending it over. Can you post your website in the comments? Because I know it's in my email somewhere, but to be honest, I don't feel, if it's easy for you, I don't really feel like digging it up, but I would like to put it in the description. So fantastic artwork. I mean, seriously. I really enjoy looking at that. Griswold Grimm says, that's epic. Boy Meets Wart says, that's awesome. Yeah, exactly. Griswold says, Sally, Joe M. Cooper, thanks for being part of the internet community. I'm excited to be excited when he tells us. Okay, I'm going to give you this exciting announcement. Okay, so there's the website right there in the chat. I recommend everyone going to check that out. And we're going to continue to support Sally's work because she's a great artist and doing good things. And also, she did do an interview with Vanderclay. So go check that out on the other channel. I haven't got to see it yet. I've been too hung up doing a bunch of different stuff, but I'm going to check that out at some point. And at some point, we will have Sally on this channel and have a conversation. So here's the announcement. I am driving across the country next week with my father. And guess what? We're leaving Wednesday morning. And I'm going to try as hard as I can, unless for some reason we don't have cell service on the highway, to live stream from the car. Don't worry. I have mics that are going to make it so that the sound isn't too bad on the highway. So it's not going to be like an annoying live stream, I hope. And you're going to get to drive across the country with us for a couple hours. That's my hope. My father's a great guy. He's going to be sitting beside me and we'll switch off driving and so forth. But I'll stream with my dad. We're going to be driving all the way from Colorado to Maine. So it's going to be about a 2,000-mile drive. And I want to document some of it and do some streams from the car. And you'll get to see my dad and I having some discussions and ask questions. And I don't know, I just think it'll be fun. So you have something to look forward to if you like that sort of thing. And other than that, I'll see you on yeah, exactly, Grizz. 5G is what we'll be using. I'll see you on Monday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, these streams are always on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 11:30 a.m. onward. And sometimes they'll be 2 hours long. Sometimes they'll be 30 minutes long. Sometimes they'll be an hour long. I don't know. Whatever I can do that day. I'm going to go dedicate myself to finishing my work. And I'm really looking forward to getting on the road on Wednesday and hopefully streaming right from the road Wednesday morning as we're leaving Colorado and entering into Nebraska. And yes, the 5G internet service hooked up to my laptop is going to be the key there. So keep your fingers crossed, and I will see you on Monday, if anything. Or excuse me, if nothing else. If anything would mean, if at all, I'll see you on Monday. But if nothing else would mean, if I can't for some reason do the live stream on the road, which I'm almost 100% sure I can, there might be a couple road bumps and hiccups, no pun intended, then what the fuck am I saying? I already lost track of my mind. I was trying to make a point about what I said and how it was horribly wrong, and then I totally lost track of it. My mind went in 700 directions at once. So I'll leave you with that nonsense. I love you all very much. This community is very important to Mercury and I. And stay tuned for more videos. Please hit that like, subscribe, notification, blah, 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 YouTuber thing that I have to say in order to help my channel grow. But really what I care about is the fact that you're here and the fact that you're participating and the fact that you care and the fact that we're having an honest discussion. So see you later, everyone. Tracking my mind with Ryan. That's an interesting idea, Sally. Adela, darling, thank you for being here. Goodbye, friends. I hope I acknowledged everyone.